Why does Bill Gates, who's not a virologist, he's not a researcher, he's not a scientist, he's not a doctor, for God's sake, I don't even think he has a college degree, but he's on mainstream media talking about the impact of this virus on humans. He's forming the vaccine conveniently for the problem that his minions have created.
So is that a money play then? If he owns the patents, does that mean he can make a lot of money from the virus, or is this about power and control?
It's not about power because they have all the power. It's not about money because they have all the money. This is about a much more sinister agenda.
What is so controversial about what you're saying that is getting video after video of yours banned by these major technology platforms?
I believe the reason that so many people watched and tuned in was because they were resonating at that frequency. They wanted the truth and it appealed to their intellect. I think the reason it's being censored is for the exact same reason. The powers that be don't want the information, the truth out there. And so anything that is getting traction and that they can see that people want, that they're hungry for, they're going to shut it down. And then when you start seeing that on a global agenda, there's something going on censoring everybody, there's a problem, and there's a big problem. And it's not the COVID-19, it's the pretense of the COVID-19 and what they're going to create that's coming down the pipeline. And it's already happening.
Look at the world now. You got most of it locked down, in total fear of even stepping outside the house, willing to do whatever it takes, people willing to rat out each other for going against the laws. I mean, it's the most valuable commodity in the world, fear, isn't it? More valuable than power, than money, than influence. If done right, you can get anything you want.
They're basically telling you that, look, there's a ferocious dog. That's the danger. That's a COVID-19. It's barking outside your door, or it's a pack of dogs and it's barking outside your door, and don't open the door, stay inside. And I'm telling you that if you open that door, not only are you going to find that there's no dog, it's not even a poodle, it's a tape recording of a dog.
The world is changing. Inspiration is everywhere. It has never been so easy to connect, share, and bring people together. We're learning from others and finding the best in ourselves. Challenging our beliefs. Sharing our vulnerability. Overcoming our fears. Transforming ourselves so we can transform the world. How far can we go? This is London Real. I am Brian Rose. My guest today is This is London Real. I am Brian Rose. My guest today is Dr. Rashid Buttar, the osteopathic physician and author best known for what you call the coronavirus agenda, the real story behind the origin of COVID-19, the intent to roll back our civil liberties, and the various forces responsible for it. You are trained in general surgery and emergency medicine and served as brigade surgeon while serving in the U.S. Army. Your first book, The 9 Steps to Keep the Doctor Away, became a Wall Street Journal international bestseller, and you are here today to raise awareness and share truth regarding the current global threat we are facing under the guise of COVID-19. A video of you with over 9 million views was recently banned on YouTube, so to avoid further censorship, we've decided that you will be streamed live through our new digital freedom platform located on our website at londonreal.tv. Dr. Buttar, welcome to London Real.
Thank you, Brian. I appreciate that. And I'm honored to be the first person on your live stream.
Great. I'm really looking forward about getting into it. You know, first of all, just welcome to the Digital Freedom Platform. It's an independent technology solution that is of the people, by the people, for the people. And just anybody watching this, if they could please share this out, because we don't have the benefits of these trillion-dollar technology companies and all of their algorithms. And I just want to say to you, Doctor, that I pledge to you that none of this will be edited and that anyone can watch the full version of this episode free without censorship or banning on londonreal.tv/Buttar. And thanks to the generous donations of tens of thousands of people around the world, also known as the London Real Army. And for anybody wanting to become a founding member of this digital freedom platform, they can go to londonreal.tv/freedom to donate. Here at London Real, we've been a platform for free speech since 2011. And Doctor, I'm excited to have you on today. So I don't know where to begin. I think maybe on this video of you with over 9 million views that was banned on YouTube last week. I mean, what is so controversial about what you're saying that is getting video after video of yours banned by these major technology platforms?
Well, I think when the videos that we had, the very first ones, the COVID-19, which the part 3, part 4, and part 5 got banned, they hit around a million within 2 days, and they got censored. And then this 9.1 million that you're talking about from Next News Network, that was, I think, in 6 days. And when you start looking at the numbers, you start realizing that people want the truth. And you and I both know that truth resonates. And when it resonates, and when another individual, another person picks up on that resonance, it's like a magnet. And some people may not know what I'm talking about. Other people may think I'm talking about foo-foo, stuff. Bottom line is this: if you've ever approached a dog and it's a guard dog and the dog growls and snarls, and then you open up let the dog loose and the dog comes up and attacks a person versus the dog doesn't attack a person. What is that? What's the difference in that? It's a resonance that the dog feels, or people being afraid of an animal. If a person is afraid of a dog or a horse or something, the dog or the horse senses that, versus if you're not afraid, they can also sense the difference, and the animal will react differently to you. And so I think this resonance with truth resonates, fear resonates, every emotion resonates at a certain frequency. And I believe the reason that so many people watched and tuned in was because they were resonating at that frequency. They wanted the truth, and it appealed to their intellect. I think the reason it's being censored is for the exact same reason. The powers that be don't want the information, the truth out there. And so anything that is getting traction and that they can see that people want, that they're hungry for, they're going to shut it down. Because our message of empowerment is all it was. It's letting people know the facts, letting them come to a conclusion themselves, using their own minds. I'm not trying to put a thought in people's minds. I'm not trying to force them to see something or force them to hear something. I'm just presenting the information and saying, look, you decide, you be the final judge. And that they couldn't afford. And you and I both know, historically, censorship is the first and second step of what an authoritarian type of government, a dictatorship, the things that myself and millions of other American soldiers, and not just American, by the way, I just want to make sure that this is not just for America, this is for the world. So every soldier that's ever served his nation, they've always done it for the same thing, for freedom. Whether it's an American soldier for the United States, or an English soldier for the United Kingdom, or Iranian soldier for Iran, or a North Korean soldier for Korea. I mean, they've all served their countries, and they've all done it for the same reason, whether it was true or not true. Whatever the propaganda was of that nation, they stood up and potentially sacrificed their life for their country. And then when you start seeing that on a global agenda, there's something going on censoring everybody, there's a problem, and there's a big problem. And it's not the COVID-19. It's the pretense of the COVID-19 and what they're going to create that's coming down the pipeline. And it's already happening. Brian, you've already seen it. I've just yesterday's news of what I heard and all the things that were happening. But there's this thing that my really good friend, Bruce Lipton, who you've had on the show here, Bruce and I put out a video last Friday. It was Bruce, myself, and Nia Peoples. And the video was based upon something that was supposed to happen on last Sunday. And it was going to be a major event. I'm not going to bother talking about what it was, but I was basically told, this is the reason I left the United States in 2016 and I moved to New Zealand. And I'm a resident of New Zealand. I'm in the United States right now. But the reason I did this was because I was told something was going to happen in 2019. It didn't happen, and I got a call a week before, or 5 days before Sunday, telling me this is the time. It's going to happen. You need to get the hell out of the country. It's going to be too late. Blah blah blah. The person, my information, my source of information, doesn't believe in God, is an agnostic, has never prayed, and he told me the only thing that's left now is prayer. And he said, I've been praying. He felt like he was a coward because he'd left, and he said, I just want to get you out. And I realized within another 36 hours with my kids and everything, and it wasn't going to happen. So I contacted Bruce, and we sent out a message. And the message was to hold love, gratitude, and compassion in our hearts, and to ask the source energy, what I call the creator, to ask the creator to support us in this evolutionary time. That was all our message was. It was a message of hope and of love, intention. We even were joking in the beginning and joking at the end. And so we kept that in there so people would feel. I didn't want people to know what it was, and they don't know what it was. I wanted them to have the positive feeling. And because it resonates at a certain frequency. And do you know that message got censored? YouTube didn't censor it, and Facebook didn't censor it, to their credit. But emails that were being sent, 200, 300 emails between people being totally censored. Margaret, Bruce's wife, called me and said, what is this? Why are they censoring this? This is just a message of love. Because again, the most important thing that they are trying to hit us on now, they've hit us on, you probably haven't read my book, but there's my philosophy on 7 toxicities. There's 6 toxicities that they've hit us on. The 7th toxicity is spiritual, and they're trying to hit us on that, and they're not going to succeed.
Wow, so you're being censored almost as a person in what you do. And we both have had some recent extreme experience with censorship. And until it happens to you, you know, it's always the other guy. It's always the crazy guy. It's always the conspiracy guy. And then when it happens right in front of your face, you're like, what's going on? And, you know, we both have had videos with millions and millions of views that have now been basically taken down. And we've also felt other censorship. So it's real. I guess that's a sign that we're talking about something that must be true. And yeah, I'd love to get into it and find out what it is from your perspective, because, you know, when I listen to you and you start going down various threads, I mean, you know a lot about this. You know a lot about each individual thread and what's happening. Where do you start with this whole thing? Where do you start to talk to people about what's going on here and what you're seeing that other people aren't?
Well, I think that probably in this particular case, a lot of people see it and feel it. They say something's not right. It doesn't make any sense, you know, 6 feet apart, and you have to maintain social distancing, and you can't get together in groups of more than 50, and then they drop it down to 20. Yet when you're on a plane, planes are flying all over the world. That doesn't make any sense. What about when you go to the grocery food store? It's the most idiotic thought process that's been put forward if this was truly a pandemic. Because if it truly was a pandemic, people would have really died. But they wouldn't be altering death certificates. They wouldn't be furloughing nurses and telling doctors to go home. They wouldn't be taking footage from one hospital and trying to put it on multiple different hospitals. In fact, the Italian hospital that they had the footage on, that they put on for New York, when I've spent a lot of time in ICUs, and I can tell you, I've never seen an ICU like that. But I thought, okay, well, it's in Italy. Maybe that's how their ICUs look. And then when they showed it in New York, I said, wait a second, that's the same ICU. So if you saw part 5, we showed the 2 different videos side by side. And of course, that went viral. There were many people that talked about, and in fact, there were 7 videos and or websites that had information that I included in part 5. And the day before, God works in mysterious ways, really mysterious ways. He's got also incredible sense of humor. But the 2 hours before, the night before the first website went down, 2 hours before we were supposed to release part 5, 7 of the 9 websites or videos on YouTube disappeared. One of the gentlemen that put out the video that we were going to use, the one in the Bronx, and showing he was walking around hospitals in the Bronx trying to find somebody that had COVID-19. I had a conversation with him, and he said afterwards, after he got censored, after he got his YouTube video taken down, and he goes, Dr. Buttar, I'm telling you right now that if my life depended on me finding a COVID-19 patient in New York, I would be dead because I couldn't find anybody. And he was standing outside the hospital. So
let me stop you right there. So does the coronavirus exist? Is COVID-19 actually being tested for? Is anyone dying for it? Maybe back up a little bit and talk about the way you see this whole piece for anyone that's maybe not familiar with what you've been talking about.
Well, I appreciate that opportunity. And I think that that's a really good question, Brian, because they are people that have taken what I've said and misconstrued it and put it together into half-truths that are absolutely illogical and idiotic. Even my own, you know, it's amazing that in my own family, what a rift that this caused. And it's like this with a lot of people. So the first thing is, yes, there is a COVID-19. It is an SHC014 surface antigen for coronavirus, which, by the way, coronaviruses were first discovered or first written about or first publicized back in the 1960s. I think the first study came out either in 1963 or 1968. From that point onwards, there have been literally thousands upon thousands upon thousands of studies that have been done on the coronavirus. Now, it's relatively an inert type of virus. It's found everywhere. And, you know, before I go on with the coronavirus aspect, I just want to mention that I'm talking about the traditional virological model right now. I'm not talking about the more evolved thought process of what viruses really are. And regardless of whether you talk about the more evolved virological model, which is really based upon Steiner's work from the 1910, 1920 timeframe, which became prevalent. His work became more aware, people became aware of his work during the Spanish flu. So we're talking about 100 years ago. But even if whether you use his virological model or you use the current virological model, the one that's accepted, it doesn't matter. The conclusion comes to the same spot. Okay, it comes to the same place. So coming back to this COVID-19 and what it really is, they took the normal coronavirus and they took the SHC014 wild type strain, and or what they would describe as a wild type strain, and that's the surface antigen that's on that particular type of coronavirus. They took then the SARS coronavirus, which is a manipulated virus, and they took that and took the backbone of that, combined it, and then they took orthologs from MERS and took orthologs from HIV and put it into that virus to make this highly virulent, highly resistant form of coronavirus called COVID-19. And that was actually
saying was this created by some people?
Well, I will only tell you what I know. I can't talk about something that I don't know. And I think this is where we get into a problem, because people start talking about what they think. And I'm just presenting facts here. So who they are, I can't tell you who they are, but I can tell you where the crumbs lie. And then people can then follow the crumbs and decide what they want to decide. But when I say they, it starts with, and let's go back to when this research was done. So the story is very, very simple. In 2014, the United States government made a decision based upon protests by many, many scientists, virologists, that some of the research that was being done, chimeric research or gain of function research, and I'll explain what that means in a second, is not something that should be done because of the potential for pandemic and the potential for mass loss of life. Now, chimeric research or gain of function research is to take something that's naturally occurring and then you change it, morphologically adjust it, chimerically manipulate it, which basically means taking components of the DNA and RNA and manipulating it, basically making a mutant form out of it, making a Frankenstein out of it, taking different parts and putting it together and creating something with the intention to make it more functional. That's why they call it gain of function studies. Now, you and I, and any logical person would say, why in the world would we take something that's naturally occurring and make it more damaging, more dangerous, more virulent, more resistant? Well, the excuse is because we need to study these gain of functions so that we can now assess, once we make them stronger, then we can assess which one is most detrimental so we can then prioritize which one we need to worry about, which is the most ludicrous component. It's like saying, well, I got a spark here, but what I want to do is cause a fire first, cause mass destruction so I can decide which type of spark that'll cause the fire will be the worst type of fire so we can prioritize against it. It is the most asinine, most ignorant, and here's the thing, highly, highly suspect. If I were to use my own free words, it's criminal and it's with the potential of creating genocide. There's a much sinister agenda here. So let's come back to this chimeric research. In 2014, finally, the US government agreed and said there is now a moratorium on any type of chimeric research. Well, in 2015, I'm not sure exactly how this happened, but Dr. Fauci in 2015, the following year, having a very high directorship at the National Institute of Health, funded a different country, China, to continue this chimeric research by basically taking $3.7 million of US taxpayer money and sending it to China. But the sad thing is that we actually started this chimeric process, and it was published in Nature magazine at the University of North Carolina at Chapel Hill. And the people that were involved with that predominantly were from North Carolina, University of North Carolina, Chapel Hill, but there were some doctors involved there from Harvard, from Sweden, and also from Wuhan. Well, Dr. Shi from Wuhan then left North Carolina and went to China. And when the first coronavirus case was reported in December of 2019, and she came out with a paper in 2020 and said, we believe that this has been something that was elucidated from bats. Well, she knows the truth. The original coronavirus that they were manipulating was so resistant to human culture. When they put it into human cell lines, it wouldn't culture. So they had to manipulate it to be able to survive or to be able to sustain itself. So the naturally occurring coronavirus from the bats that they took, the human cell media culture, it just wasn't viable for it. And actually all these different components, they don't jump from an animal to a human naturally. That's not how the creator designed them. But we as humans go in and muck around everything that humans touch. We screw it up. We're the cause of all the the climate change that is being blamed. I mean, forget about climate change for a second. We are cause of extinction. We are cause of the loss of the lungs of the planet, the indiscriminate cutting down of trees all over the world. We basically screw everything up. Well, here is another example. We go in there, we start mucking around with things that we don't understand, and they're doing it for a certain reason. Why would you want to manipulate a virus that's naturally occurring to make it more virulent, make it more resistant, make it more damaging, and go against a government moratorium after virologists throughout the world had protested that this type of research should not be done? There's no function to it. It does not serve mankind. It only has the potential of hurting mankind.
Okay, and Fauci is the one that put that money. Why would you take something so dangerous and move it, out of your own borders into a place like China, which we've always had some type of competition with it? That seems so strange.
Well, it may seem strange to you and I, Brian, if we are innocent people, but now if we are inquisitive people, as opposed to being naive, we may want to ask that question, why? And I don't know the answer to that, but there are a number of different possibilities. But what I believe is happening right now, if I can just jump fast forward, if I can jump like they're saying this COVID-19 can, 13 feet, I'm just going to jump forward 13 feet. Because by the way, the COVID-19 can't jump like that. I mean, smallpox, tuberculosis, and Ebola are the only things that are air transmittable. Everything else, it's a lie, it's a lie, it's a lie. They don't transmit through the air. If you sneeze and you've got a common cold or you've got the coronavirus or something like that, you sneeze, it's not traveling through the air. It's a particulate matter of sputum or saliva that's then traveling and that's carrying the viral load. It then lands on a grocery shopping cart or on some item, and then you touch, and then you pick up an apple or a banana or something, and then you eat it. That's how it transmits. It doesn't just flow through the air. Only Ebola does that. Only tuberculosis does that. And I believe the third one is smallpox. The point being misinformation upon misinformation. And my outrage in that video that got taken out, the 9.1 million, was against doctors, and scientists. Why aren't you speaking out? And I had a person who was one of the first people to have me on his social media platform a couple of weeks ago, Dominic Izzo, great guy, retired law enforcement officer. And he said, Doc, I just want to thank you from the bottom of my heart, because I think that you single-handedly, compared to all the media, everybody on the planet that's talking about this, single-handedly made more people aware of what's going on. And I appreciated that, but it's not a message about any one particular person. It's a message about truth. And the thing is that after that video, what I was so grateful for was so many other doctors not coming forward and talking, but they've been censored. We had the doctor from the ER in New York who clearly said the same thing that I had been hearing from friends of mine that are New York doctors, friends that are from training, but also friends, about 20 to 25% of our patients are doctors or their family members are doctors. So I've got doctors in New York that are very high up and they have many clinics underneath them, and they're giving me firsthand information. Yes, there is more respiratory issues going on. Yes, there is an influx in the hospital, but no, it's not a virus. We don't know what the hell it is. It looks like a hypoxic injury. It looks like altitude sickness. It's a strange phenomenon, and the way we're treating it right now is not effective. They're completely bypassing the normal aspects of when somebody needs respiratory assistance. CPAP, which is continuous positive airway pressure, BiPAP, bilateral, continuous positive airway pressure or positive airway pressure, it's being just negated. They're not even looking at it. And yesterday there was a nurse that came out and said that one of her friends that's in the units, in the hospitals, the ICU units in New York, she said they're murdering people. They're not doing anything. People that have a code, nobody's responding. They're not doing the things that we normally do. The people are being murdered. Now, why are they being murdered? I don't understand this. And that's the exact word that she used. There are many, many people that are complicit with this action. And Brian, you may have to rein me in, but one of the things that really aggravates me is this whole concept of not trying to blame it on China. I don't care whether China did it intentionally, whether China did it accidentally. That doesn't negate the fact that Dr. Fauci paid $3.7 million to a foreign government to start funding this.
Just to understand that, so in 2014, it was identified. 2015, it's in North Carolina. 2015, it was moved to China. And you're saying over those 4 years, they found a way for it to now be crossed over into humans. And then it was somehow released in China.
It actually, in 2011, they had found ways of getting these coronaviruses from bats into humans. They've been working on this for some time. So that's, again, another piece of, information that they throw out there to divert attention. So it's been going on.
And you're saying that then this
By the
virus...
way, Brian, I don't mean to cut you off. It's actually published. This is not just me speaking. This is published information. In fact, the editors of the journal, in part 3, Corrupted Science, if you saw that video, I showed the study, and they're taking some of these studies offline. They're actually withdrawing them. So when I mentioned about the HIV orthologs being put on the COVID-19, people started hammering me like, oh, that's not factual. There's no study like that, blah, blah, blah. So I went back to find it. It was gone. I couldn't find it. And one of my patients, a very well-connected and very wealthy individual in Hong Kong, found out that I was looking for it. He sends it to me. And my question was like, where did you get this from? How did you find it? He goes, don't ask questions. This is what you wanted. Here it is. So we have it on the video. And it was stamped right across it, withdrawn. They're manipulating history right now, trying to prevent people from finding out the truth. So
okay. And so what happened from 2015 to then 19 to where we are now? Like, what do you think happened? This virus was transferred to China, and then it was escaped either intentionally or unintentionally, and now we're in this situation. Is that what you think happened?
Well, all I can tell you is the facts. The facts are they were working on it in North Carolina, whether they finalized it in North Carolina and then transferred it to China, or whether it was in the process of being transferred. Or I can tell you that the original cell lines that they used in the research was from Fort Detrick. So that's another thing. And of course, Fort Detrick goes back historically to all sorts of things, including HIV back in the 1980s. You know, Fort Detrick, again, being in the military, the history of Fort Detrick is pretty interesting. There was a book written called Project Daylily by Garth Nicholson, who was the head of the laboratory division at MD Anderson. There were some things that happened at MD Anderson, for example, some of the human experimentations that were being done on vaccines. And this particular doctor, not Garth Nicholson, not Garth Nicholson, but one of his colleagues at MD Anderson, decided that he was going to expose the truth because they were taking Harris County. Houston is located in a county called Harris County. Harris County jail system, they were using these vaccine as experimentation, human experimentation, using it on the inmates in Harris County jail. And when this doctor said he was going to expose it, suddenly he was found dead in his office in the hospital, apparent suicide. There was only one problem with that apparent suicide. The exit wound was in the front of his head. The entry wound was in the back of his head. So when you start looking at things like this, and of course nobody talks about it, the media doesn't talk about it. And there's been these histories of these reported suicides. Dr. Bradstreet, who was a friend of mine, who I was a keynote speaker on Friday of this conference that happened in May of 2015. He was a keynote speaker with 2 other doctors on that Saturday. I was talking to him. He had a new book coming out. He just got married. He was happy. 2 weeks later, he's found dead in North Carolina. He's from Florida. He's found in North Carolina with apparent reported suicide with a gunshot wound to his chest. Okay, now people don't shoot themselves in the chest, but suicide. So, and they rooted that he was depressed. And again, I know this guy, I was with him. And I actually had a very strange event that happened. And I basically went to the police and I told him, look, I don't need anything. I'm just reporting to you. And I've told it out to my social media platform then. Hundreds of people knew about it back then. That, look, if something happens to me, I'm not depressed. I'm not suicidal. I love life. And don't worry about me. I'm not worried about that part. I'm just wanting to make sure that if somebody rules it a suicide, it's not. Okay, whatever it is, it's not suicide.
And so is there some grand global agenda to like control the population? And this has been thought about for decades and decades, and something is happening here, and these other people that you're talking about that have been taken out are maybe getting in the way of that? Is that what we're seeing now? And now are people complicit in this? Is that what you think is happening?
They're definitely complicit in it. So what happened with the virus when it got to China, whether it was a virus that got to China or whether the techniques to make this into the chimeric gain of function COVID-19 eventuality, whether that was done in China, the technology was developed and technology was taught in University of North Carolina, Chapel Hill. And so I don't know whether it was the end product that was transferred or it was just the technology that was transferred. So, but again, none of that is relevant. You know, it's kind of like, which route did you go between New York to California? Did you go stop over in Chicago or in Dallas or wherever? It doesn't make any difference. You're going to California. So the whole thing is it got to China. The fact that now you've got this COVID-19, whether it was an accidental release or it was an intentional release, I don't know. But I can tell you this: it doesn't explain the complicit nature of the United States and of many other countries. These are the leaders. And when I'm talking about leaders, I'm talking about sometimes the leaders are good guys. They're being misinformed by those that they rely upon to shut down the economies. So there's a complicitness throughout the globe, and that is very sinister. Now you start looking at where does all this go? So I'm just going to draw the lines because I'm kind of speaking. Some people may think I'm speaking somewhat cryptically, and I'm not trying to speak cryptically. I'm just trying to give the information that I know for sure. But these are the facts. Dr. Fauci has been involved with promotion of drugs that we know are not good. This started in 1981 when he talked about the gay disease, talking about HIV, and developed funded a drug and pushed for this drug for 3 years that caused a lot of problems, prophylactic prevention of HIV, supposedly. And now we know that's a lifestyle issue. There's many other things, nutrition plays a part, et cetera, et cetera. But he pushed for this 3 years before a virus was ever identified in 1984. So Dr. Fauci has this history. He has been in the pockets of somebody interesting, Bill Gates. Now, Bill Gates couldn't keep viruses out of windows, but he wants to keep viruses out of humans. So now let's see how he's trying to do that. Why does Bill Gates, who's not a virologist, he's not a researcher, he's not a scientist, he's not a doctor, for God's sake, I don't even think he has a college degree, but he's on mainstream media talking about the impact of this virus on humans and how we are going to have to go 6 months, a year before we can actually congregate again. He has also been documented year after year talking about vaccination, depopulation through vaccination. We look at his history and it goes back to this idea of eugenics historically. Now, he's funded so many different agencies and he's got so many countries where he has multiple lawsuits again because of the damage that they've caused from viruses. I can read you some historical stuff that my friend Bobby Kennedy just recently put out. But it's incredible, the history of it. And I can go through some of this information if you want. But the bottom line is he owns the patents on coronavirus, on COVID-19. One of those patents in Europe was granted and perfected in November of 2019. I'm not talking about a vaccine. I'm talking about the actual virus. Now, I want you to think about this. H1N1 came out 10 years ago. President Obama said 60 million people were going to die in the United States, 20% of the population. They didn't. Do you know why they didn't? Because they refused en masse to take the H1N1 vaccine. I put out a couple of videos then, and it's, some people said that it had a big impact. Whether it did not, I don't really care. I just wanted people to stop thinking that H1N1 was going to save them. I remember traveling from a conference in the airport. Obama's talking about on the TV in these restaurants in the airport, talking about how we need to be very safe and it's going to kill 60 million people. And people were laughing. Washington State, New York State, they had nursing associations that were ready to go all the way to the Supreme Court if necessary to protest the unconstitutionality of being mandated to take a vaccine that was not proven. H1N1, there were riots in Germany, in the UK, and there was 98% of the population in Germany. Basically, the government said they were going to pay for 98% of the population to get the H1N1. They protested, and it was just ridiculous. People just said, no way. The reason we didn't have people that died from the H1N1 like Obama predicted was because people en masse refused the vaccine. Los Angeles.
So the vaccine would have killed them.
Let me give you this fact. Martin Luther King Hospital in Los Angeles reported 64 people that died of H1N1. This is 10 years ago now, okay? And nobody covered the story. In Los Angeles, Time got a hold of the story and started blowing it up. Like, why isn't the world talking about these 64 people that died of H1N1? It's going to be a pandemic. It's going to be this. It's going to be that. And then, boom, the story goes dead. You can't find it. Even in the archived websites, you could not find that story anywhere. I was amazed I couldn't find it. It just so happened that I had a friend of mine from general surgery that was working at Martin Luther King Hospital at the time. I had a conversation with him, and I asked him, I said, that was all BS, wasn't it? He says, no, all 64 did die from H1N1. And I said, like, documented? He said, yes, it was documented. It was they were all documented. So I'm thinking this is really big. Why didn't the world talk about it? And then he dropped the bombshell on me. He said, Rashid, all 64 had the H1N1 vaccine. So all the people got the vaccine had died. Now, this is what's coming down the pipeline right now. I want you to understand that Baxter had the patent on H1N1 virus filed in Austria 9 months before the first H1N1 case was ever reported. Now, fast forward to now, to 2020. Over 12, 13, 14, I don't know how many thousands of studies in coronavirus. You cannot patent something that's natural. However, there are multiple patents issued. There are videos online now. On our part 3, I show those videos. On part 5, I show the videos. I show who owns them. And those videos show the patents are owned by Bill Gates Foundation that through another company called Pineburst or something like that. It starts with a P. I can't remember the name. I apologize. But it's in our videos. And that company is a European company that owns the European patents on coronavirus, on this particular form of coronavirus. Not one, not two. It's a whole class of patents. And they go all the way back to 2011. Now, why would Bill Gates, a foundation that he is running, why would that foundation have a patent on a chimeric, man-manipulated version of a virus that is now the source of a pandemic with the person, Dr. Fauci, in his pocket, who's funding the research from American taxpayer dollars to a foreign country. And when you start talking about blaming it on China or on any other country, you're forgetting what the problem is. It's not the China problem. It's not Chinese. Whatever you do, you're again creating diversion. Epoch Times is out there right now saying we are going to expose the truth, and that it's another diversion. The issue is what's going on here. They're trying to take away our rights. It's under pretense of public safety that they're trying to take away our rights. Because here's what's coming down the pipeline. Bill Gates owns the rights to this coronavirus. He's forming the vaccine conveniently for the problem that he has created, that he has funded, that his minions have created. He is the biggest proponent and one of the founding people, organizers or founding owners of ID 2020 with the mandate of the tattooing. I mean, how is the tattooing different that they're talking about, the microchip or the tattooing that they're doing different from what they did with the Jews back in
World War II.
World War II, yeah.
And this is the tattooing, which means that if you don't have the vaccine, you're not allowed to, say, fly or go out or do all these things. But if you do have the vaccine and you get this ID or this tattoo, then you're allowed to have these citizen rights. That's what you're talking about.
That's exactly right. But it's much more sinister than that, Brian. Much more sinister. By the way, one of my staff just brought a piece of paper, and it's Pirbright, P-I-R-B-R-I-G-H-T Institute that owns the patents. And that Pirbright is owned by Bill Gates Foundation.
And is that a money play then? If he owns the patents, does that mean he can make a lot of money from the virus, or is this about power and control?
No,
okay.
It's not about power because they have all the power. It's not about money because they have all the money. This is about a much more sinister agenda. And this is the agenda that I'm glad that you have this on a media platform that nobody can shut down, because this is what my goal is, to make sure that people understand what the truth is, what's coming down. I've kept on talking about this. This is a topic that I know is near and dear to your heart because you've talked about it a lot. Fear is an illusion. It does not exist. There's no such thing as fear. Fear is something that we create in our mind about the potential of something occurring in the future. But danger, on the other hand, is very real. Will Smith is a great guy. I don't know him, good actor, but you know why I think he's such a great guy? Because he talked about this very message in one of his movies. Danger is real, and we must be aware of what the danger is so that we can prepare. So danger is real, fear is an illusion. What they have done, when I say they, and we'll come to who they is in a second, you and I'll get to that conclusion together. But what they've done is they have tried to make people fearful of COVID-19. And COVID-19 is not the thing to be feared. It is not the thing that is dangerous. What's dangerous is coming down the pipeline. And the whole gamut, the whole cascade of it's like, Hitler was a bad guy, but he was a genius. The play that they've made is genius. It's evil, but it's genius. The way that they have orchestrated everything and put it together, and it is so unbelievable. I mean, there's been no movie or anything that's ever been put together that shows how intricate and yet simple, using human emotions of fear, that they have created this entire component.
Yeah, look at the world. Look at the world now. You got most of it locked down in total fear of even stepping outside the house, willing to do whatever it takes, people willing to rat out each other for going against the laws. I mean, it's the most valuable commodity in the world, fear, isn't it? More valuable than power, than money, than influence. If done right, you can get anything you want, right?
You're absolutely right. And the thing that people have to remember is that to be aware of danger is very critical, but don't allow what you're fearful for or what's been painted as the source of danger, because that's the diversion. Look for the real danger. They're basically telling you that, look, there's a ferocious dog. That's the danger. That's a COVID-19. It's barking outside your door, or it's a pack of dogs and it's barking outside your door, and don't open the door, stay inside. And I'm telling you that if you open that door, not only are you going to find that there's no dog, it's not even a poodle. It's a tape recording of a dog. It's a tape recording of a pack of dogs barking. But the real danger is the saber-toothed tiger coming behind you. That saber-toothed tiger is this mandated vaccine, because what's going to happen, they're going to give you vaccines that's going to make more people sick. While we're in the homes, while we're hidden, they don't want people to see what the truth is. The truth is that everything's fine. The truth is that people aren't dropping dead. The truth is that the hospitals are idle. Ambulances are sitting there. Paramedics are playing cards. They're bored. Doctors are being laid off. Nurses are being furloughed. That's the truth. More truth. What they don't want you to see. What they don't want you to see is the rollout of the 5G. They don't want to have people seeing these 5G towers going on. Now, I've had people say, Doctor, how can you say COVID-19 is caused by 5G? I've never said that. So I want people to hear what the truth is. 5G does not cause COVID-19. 5G doesn't cause any infectious disease process, people. I'm trying to get that through their heads that it's not 5G that's causing anything, but 5G causes massive, massive health problems. Over 2,000 studies have been done to show the effects of 5G on our systems. 5G, when they talk about the 5G, the fifth generation, when they actually roll it out, the final end product is 30 to 300 gigahertz. That's what they're going to be. That's going to be the power of this technology. Our phones are around 900 hertz. So Brian, so you can understand what the different. Somebody suggested, one of the subscribers suggested, maybe you want to spell this out. So I'm going to spell this out so that all your viewers can understand this. When you've got 900 hertz on your cell phone, and now you start talking about 5G, and you start talking about 30 to 300 gigahertz, I want to just draw that extrapolation out. 1 gigahertz is 1 billion hertz with a B, not million, billion hertz. 1.8 billion hertz or 1.8 gigahertz is where the studies have showed an increase in proliferation of cancers, brain cancer, adrenal cancers, heart cancers, which are very rare, neurological implications, all sorts of other health problems. 5G causes a disruption of the cell membranes. There are things inside the cell membranes called voltage-gated calcium channels. This technology disrupts those channels and makes the cell membranes more permeable so that there's an efflux of calcium into the cell, and efflux of calcium into the cell causes a suppression of apoptosis and uncontrolled cellular proliferation, which are both pathognomonic for the oncogenic process, cancer. All right? That's just one thing that 5G does. Another thing that 5G does, for whatever reason, and I don't know the physiology of it, because again, I'm not a researcher, I'm a clinician, I take care of patients, this observation where iron gets disassociated from hemoglobin, causing what appears to be a hypoxic type injury, which is exactly what the doctors in New York have been reporting. But to treat it the way they're doing with the virus is only going to kill people. Now, I want to just go back for a second and just appeal to some logic that people would have. Here's this very virulent and resistant virus. And sometimes, okay, I need to point this out because this is something that even my son said, Dad, you said that this is very virulent. You say it's resistant. It's just really, really bad. And it's gain of function and it's man manipulated. But then you say it's nothing to worry about. How is that possible? If 0 to 60 was our goal and we're trying to break the 4-second 0 to 60 barrier, and then we go into 3 seconds or 2.5 seconds or 2 seconds, this virus is 0 to 60 in 0.1 seconds. Okay? It is fast. But it's like the worst case of premature ejaculation. It does its business and it's there. It's gone. I think the entire population of the whole planet has been exposed to it. That's one reason when they're testing, everybody's already had it. And I don't think that it came from Wuhan. I think it was everywhere. The Wuhan component, and Brian, this is where it becomes really important. The people in Wuhan, from what I understand, had vaccination, a big vaccination schedule in the fall of 2019. I don't have verification of that, but that's what I have been told by multiple sources. But I do have verification that Wuhan was the place that 5G was going to be rolled out and announced by China, by the Chinese government, as early as 2018. And part 4, 5G and immunity of the COVID-19 conspiracy videos, documents that and shows the websites where China announced that Wuhan would be the place that they would roll this out. Wuhan turned on their 5G towers, about 2,000 of those 12 or 13,000 towers. They turned 2,000 of them on in December of 2019 when the first case was reported. Not only that, in 2017 and 2016, BBC and CNN were covering the outrage, the global outrage about the level of pollution that was secondary to the incinerators burning in Wuhan. And what was incredible was, this is the third world. I mean, China, they're an oppressive society, and yet the public was outraged. There were public demonstrations, and that's what garnered the world's attention, that here's China with people that are demonstrating because of the quality of the air. So these people were toxic already. They had the vaccine on board. You turn on the 5G and people start dropping. Now, this is the exact...
And so from what I understand, you're saying it's extremely contagious, but it's not dangerous.
That's
and
right.
Yet it seems that when you turn up the 5G, that's when we possibly start seeing symptoms. And that's why you're saying it looks almost like this high altitude thing. And maybe that's why all the doctors you see are super confused, because they see these patients that are dropping in oxygen, and yet they're not acting like the normal ones they would potentially put on ventilators. We've seen all of those videos. Okay.
Exactly. And once you bypass the pre-endotracheal intubation components, such as intubation, Once intubation is where you basically pass the endotracheal tube down into the airway, and now you are mechanical ventilation. Once you bypass the precursors like CPAP and BiPAP and some of these other non-invasive.
To continue watching the rest of the episode for free, visit our website londonreal.tv or click the link in the description below.